Hey everyone, it's Joe from bballcardinsights.com, and today we're going to take a look at an article I wrote a couple weeks ago regarding Larry Bird cards. Now, Larry Bird actually only played for 12 years in the NBA, and he actually played during a time that there weren't a whole lot of cards made. So his career started in 1980, went to 1993, but those years from 1980 to like 1986, there really weren't very many made. So really, it's kind of the last half of his career where there were more cards starting to be made in the hobby. So I think Larry Bird kind of got a raw deal in terms of hobby collecting perspective, as there weren't a lot of variety. But even so, we're going to cover 12 valuable Larry Bird cards spanning during his career. And the first one is a very rare one. It's going to be pretty expensive if you want to invest in this one. However, if you want to go at like a PSA 5 or 6, you can get them for a much more reasonable price. But it's the 1980 Topps scoring leader card that has him, Magic Johnson, and Julius Erving on it. And this card's interesting because all the cards made in 1980 by Topps actually had three players on the card. And this one was the scoring leader card, but Larry Bird is also featured on a couple other cards. But this is the one that's the most valuable, namely because it has two other Hall of Famers in Irving and Johnson on the card with him. Um, if you want to try to get a PSA 10, you're looking to spend over 100 grand, and it's probably not going to come up for auction very often. But you might be able to get a PSA 6 for around $1,000 for this card. So we can just look at it. It looks pretty cool. Next one is 1981 Topps. So this card is made the next year for Topps. But then there would be kind of a dry spell where Topps didn't really make cards and didn't get back into the hobby until sort of the early 90s. So this 81 Topps is kind of a strange standalone card. And PSA 8 you can get for a few $100, but once you get into the PSA 10s, obviously there's not going to be very many around, and you're going to have to pay, uh, 3, 4 grand. I'm not really sure on current figures on the card, but it's going to be pretty expensive. But you can definitely get a Larry Bird card in a PSA 8 for still a reasonable price. And I think this is actually one of the better investment cards you can make because it doesn't have two other players on the card. It's sort of a standalone Larry Bird card from early in his career, and actually from the year when he won his first championship with the Celtics. So that's pretty cool. 1986 is kind of an iconic year. This is one where Fleer got back into the hobby, started making cards, and a lot of the players whose rookies were from rookie years are from like 1983 or 84 up until 1986 are considered rookie cards for those players because there was kind of a drought in the early to mid 80s on cards. And I think it was a reflection of the lack of popularity of the NBA itself. And really, Larry Bird and Magic Johnson and their rivalry between the Celtics and Lakers spurred the modern NBA era and its popularity. Of course, Jordan catapulted it to a whole new level and became a global sport. And now you see it's just a crazy global sport today. But really, Bird and Johnson take a lot of credit for that. And this 1986 Fleer card is from that iconic set. Recently broke $2,000 in an auction in July of 2020, um, where the Jordan is going for like mid five figures to almost over 100K. So if you were to get a Larry Bird of one of these cards, I think it's an awesome one for a collection. It is tough to find these cards centered. Centering is kind of the first major issue, and then obviously over the years, wear and tear on the cards plays a role. I think if you were to find a PSA like 6 or 7 for one of these cards for fairly cheap, it could be a pretty good long-term investment, as the number of cards in circulation for these 1986 Fleer are going to go down, and those PSA 6s, as you see in like older mantle cards over the years, they really go up in value. So this could be a really good one to invest in. Next up, we're going to take a look at his sticker card from that same set. Stickers are notorious for being off center, so this is just a sticker of that set. Another pretty cool card. I prefer the regular design over this one, but still a very cool one. A gem rate of only 2% on these stickers. That's how difficult it is to get gems for these 1986 Fleer stickers because they were just so far off center, but another pretty cool card. Next, we'll look at 1987 Fleer. So he had a sticker and a regular card from 1987 Fleer. So obviously just the following year, slightly different design. And another really collectible couple of cards here. Only 2% are receiving a gem mint 10 again. So these mid to late 80s cards, there's just not very many gem mints in the population. So even if you were to buy some old hobby boxes or something, good luck trying to get tens. You're probably going to get a lot of eights and stuff, even if you get them fresh from packs. So a vast majority, 50%, as I said, receive actually a PSA 8 grade. So, but another couple of pretty cool cards. Uh, Again, Fleer was kind of the dominant uh, card brand in the 80s, and from 1988 to 90, we just got a couple more 88 and 89 Fleer Larry Bird cards for you. Again, this is the 88 regular and sticker card. And then here's 1989 and 1990. Definitely all cards you can find at pretty reasonable prices, especially at like a PSA 8 or something, to add to a collection and be a good long-term investment. Here are the breakdowns of PSA 8s, 9s, and 10s for these years. So you can see that, a bulk of cards are going to receive a PSA 9 in these years. So a little bit easier to grade than like 86 and 87. And a little bit easier to get 10s. And you can see once we get up to 1990, a pretty good chunk of them are PSA 9s and 10s because centering wasn't as big of an issue and the card stock just holds up better over time. Next, we get into 1990. This is the inaugural year of Skybox in the hobby. A much different design than what Fleer was doing in the late 80s, where they have this outline of the player and just a really stark graphic design background. This is a big leap in card design in the industry. If we go back to these cards, you can see they're all just photos. They were just using photos and some kind of bordered outline design. And then suddenly Skybox came out with this and it was like, whoa, this is a big leap. These cards were printed a lot. So they're not exactly hard to find. You could probably jump on eBay and find a Larry Bird 90s Skybox for a couple bucks raw. So really easy to find. PSA 10s gem about 48% of the population that have been graded. But my guess is most people grading these cards graded them a while back or more experienced flippers. If you were to go out and get a box of Skybox and send in every single Larry Bird card you got, my guess is the gem rate would probably be like 15%. So you want to send your best of the best in, and even then you're probably only going to gem a little under half the time. But you really kind of want to get 9s and 10s on these cards because I think with how many were produced and the relative easiness to grade and buy old boxes that are still pretty cheap means you really want to get 9s and 10s on these cards if you're grading. And if you're going to go out and buy them on the market already graded at a PSA grade, you really want to get 9s and 10s as well. You could probably get 9s for really cheap nowadays, even if they even come up. That's the thing, is people probably don't grade them as much, mainly because 9s just haven't proven to be worth grading yet. But at some point they will. At some point 9s will be worth 20, 30 bucks and the 10s will be worth, 80 to 100 bucks. That'll be years down the road when these are much, when the populations have dwindled, but pretty cool card, the 90s Skybox. Next up, I threw in this 91 Hoops USA card just because it was from the Dream Team, which was kind of a big deal back in the day. That really brought basketball with Jordan and all the great players from the NBA to a global level as they played on the Dream Team and played against all these other international teams that saw how good basketball was in the United States and probably spurred a lot of younger players from other countries to want to take up the game and play at this level. And now you see players like Porzingis and Doncic from Dallas like in the scene. There's a ton of players from the 90s and 2000s that emerged from Europe and other countries. You even had Akeem Olajuwon. So it truly became like a global sport not long after the Dream Team kind of showed up. So that's why I included this card. You could probably get it pretty cheap, and it still has a fairly low pop. So I think over time this will be a much more collectible or memorable card. But for now, you can actually get it for pretty cheap. So this could be one to look out for. Again, I'm not highlighting every single Larry Bird card, but I thought this is one where if you have a pretty small budget and you want to pick up a Larry Bird card, this could be a really good one to collect and invest in for the long term and eventually maybe get it graded and stuff. Final card I included in the list was 93's Finest, Larry Bird. I included the refractor, but you could also pick up the regular version. And the reason I included this card is 93 was the first year that refractors were made. And Topps Finest, this is when Topps came back into the hobby. They came out with Topps Finest. This is a very like historic set. Prices have recently been booming on these, especially the hobby boxes. And in fact, so much so that I think it's not worth trying to rip and get cards from hobby boxes because the prices are just too high. You're probably better off going out and trying to find like singles of a Larry Bird from his stock one or even his refractor. I think in the long run, refractors are going to have very big investment opportunities in the hobby, especially these early refractors. So let's see, gem rates, 27%. These are tough to gem. Not only do they have a really well-defined border, so centering is an issue, but the surface on these cards, if they are stuck in packs over the years, are very prone to chipping. So if you somehow stumble upon a PSA 10 refractor, and it's even a somewhat reasonable price, that could be a really big investment opportunity. So another cool Larry Bird card. So I hope you guys enjoyed this list of Larry Bird cards and kind of an explanation of a bunch of them. As I said, I think Larry Bird got kind of a raw deal in the hobby because when he was in his prime, there wasn't much for you to collect in the hobby, which is kind of a bummer. And then by the time he was in the twilight years, it was the junk wax era. So kind of a raw deal on Larry Bird, but still a lot of cool cards. And over time, these will definitely appreciate in value and be good investment opportunities. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.